Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Public Services Committee to confirm the budget for next year. Welcome, thanks all for coming. We'll move on to public participation. Nobody in the room, nobody in the room, and nobody via Zoom. So let's move on to apologies for absence. I have Councillor Mrs. Bennett, Councillor Whitaker, and Councillor Visser. These for noting, or
you can accept their apologies.
Yeah, we can accept their apologies.
So that's second.
Second, please.
I'd like to second that, Chair.
Let's vote for that, everybody.
Lovely, thank you.
Okay, declarations of interest. Does anybody have any for this meeting? Nope, I see no hands. Okay. Okay, so item 4, to consider the draft budget book for 23-24. The Public Services Committee has no direct cost responsibilities, being a committee whose prime objectives are representational. However, the committee does need to formally affirm that it has no formal budgetary needs for the coming year. Members are asked to note detailed papers submitted and duly recommend as appropriate to finance and general purposes. I would like to recommend that to finance and general purposes that the Public Services Committee has no requirements for funding above that set out in the draft book. Please may I have a second? Thank you, Councillor Favor. Any comments, any questions on that one? Okay, no hands. All those in favour? Thank you very much. Fantastic. Okay, well, that was it. Right, the next full committee will be held at 7 PM on Thursday, the 2nd of March. That's the end of the meeting. Thank you.
Is it February?
Yeah.
Oh, it was January. Oh, okay.
That was nice and that, wasn't it? I'd like to declare the opening of the Amenities and Tourism Committee today, the 12th of January, starting at 7:04 PM. First of all, public participation. There is nobody present for public participation, so I'll move on to apologies for absence. Apologies for absence today are Councillor Dooley, who is unwell, Councillor Sweatman and Councillor Visser, who has personal commitments. Please may I have a second to accept those apologies?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Councillor Favor. If we can vote to accept those.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just remind committee or those present that it is only those who are on the committee that have a vote.
Declarations of interest. Is there anybody that has any declarations they wish to put forward? Anything to do with the cost centres of the budget book for budget 23-24? Thank you. No. Moving on to the only agenda item, to consider the draft budget book for 2023-2024. Members are asked to have to look at the cost centres responsible by the Amenities and Tourism Committee. The budget cost centres that we look at are 300, which is East Court, 600 Economic Development and Tourism Services, 700 cost centre 700 Cemetery Services, and 999 Civic Pride. Does anybody have any questions on those four cost centres of the budget book? No. Part 2 of mine is the finance and general purposes. We'd like to put forward that the capital scheme proposals are set down in the draft budget book are adequate to meet the needs and requirements of the budget. So I'd like to propose the budget as is for the amenities and tourism. Please may I have a second? Councillor Osborne, thank you. Please could we move forward to accept any questions? If we can move forward to accept the proposed budget.
That is carried.
Thank you. Right, the next full meeting, the next full meeting for this committee, amenities and tourism, will be held at 7 p.m. on Thursday, the 9th of March 2023. I close this meeting at 7:07.
Do you want to
Unmute it now, Chair.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming to the Finance General Purposes Committee to consider the budget for 23-24. I open this meeting at 7:08. Let's move on to agenda item number 1, public participation. We have nobody in the room and nobody on Zoom, so we'll move on to item 2. Apologies for absence. I have Councillor Sweatman and Councillor Visser. May I have a second to accept their apologies?
I'm happy to second that, Chair.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, and can we move on to the vote, please? Thank you.
Carried.
Declarations of interest, do we have any?
I'd like to declare that I'm a trustee at the Checkermead Theatre.
Thank you for declaring that. Anybody else?
Reserve.
Same. Thank you.
Just to clarify, Chair, unless there is discussion over that particular line, then that doesn't affect the councillors on this particular occasion.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to item 4, to consider the draft budget book for 23-24. Hopefully you've all got your budget books with you and had a good read through. The consideration that the members will need to undertake the meeting will ultimately culminate in a formal recommendation to the council. In summary, members are asked to A, consider and approve the recommendation from the other committees. I note that other committees have all met and recommended their budget lines as set out in the draft budget book 23-24. Will committees please accept these recommendations, which I propose? So I propose the other committees.
To accept the recommendations.
That's the word.
of the
Accept
Planning,
it.
Public Services and Amenities and Tourism Committees.
What you said. May I have a second?
I'm happy to second that, Chair.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Okay, no, I see no hands, so let's move to the vote, please. All those in favour? Thank you very much. Okay. Moving on, approve so I'd now like to approve the budget for the cost centres under F&GP control. These are democratic representations, cost centre 100, corporate management, cost centre 200, community support, cost centre 400, including the grants to the community organisations, central administration and support, cost centres 1100, and charities, cost centre 1000. I'd like to propose those as they are laid out in the draft book, and I'd like to ask for a second.
I'm happy to second that, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Farron. Does anybody have any questions or would like to speak? Councillor Reynolds.
Yes, I have 3 questions and statements. First question is, Is the councillor allowance that we receive supposed to be used for things like travelling and babysitting if we had children to be looked after?
Yes, it's there to help you as us as councillors with whatever we need it to be helpful with.
That leads me on to my second question. This council is campaigning or lobbying for allowing people to vote from home. And that will not require, they won't even have to come in, they could just take part in the debates and vote from home. That's what the mayor says he wants in his introduction, or rather forward to the budget book. If that were to go ahead, would this council happily reduce council's allowances because these people would not need babysitting services and would not need money to come in to the council?
That's a good question, and something I think we'd have to consider and look into if that was changed in the future. I don't think we can comment on that now, but I think it's something that we could look into in the future. And going forward, let's see what happens with the voting from home, and then if it does, then we can look at that as a whole.
All I'd say is that's down to national legislation set by the government, so
Yep.
it's something we can control.
No, let's see. I don't think it's it. Okay. And question 3.
Yeah, my last question is, what is the purpose of the council? And if it is to promote the good of the community, how can you tell which items of expenditure create net value for the people of East Grinstead?
I would have hoped if you wanted a full in-depth answer to that question, that we could maybe propose that a little bit earlier, so I think we could have prepared something. But I think we are there for the people. That's why we all do it. We are there to represent and fight for the people of East Grinstead and do what we see as best for them. We know that we get great feedback from things like eSport Live and all the other events we put on, that we're there to help and support the community. So I know you like KPIs and SALAs and things like that, but unless you want to put something out there and ask them, the population in Grinstead, all you can say is that we feel, and the feedback we have received is that we are doing a good job for the community and that the money is being well spent. I also think that all the work that is carried out by our accounts and here and all the hard work they go through, and the fact that they're getting such great reviews about their audits, I don't see that we're not misspending money, we're spending it wisely and looking after the community. So I think in that essence, we are doing what we are set out to do.
Could I make this? Well, I would urge the council to vote against this budget proposition because I'm firmly of the belief there is £78,000 of expenditure, which is probably harmful to the community, and that's on your own grounds. The idea that we should help the community. So I'm accepting your grounds, and I'm saying even on your own grounds, this expenditure is harmful. And the £78,000 of expenditure that I'm referring to is £500 for East Grinstead Bloom, £3,500 for the Youth Sports Grant, £3,500 for the East Grinstead Museum, £500 for the East Grinstead Marathon, and £70,000 for Checkers Meet. Now, I am aware some of those fall outside of our cost centres, and if I cited those falsely, which I know I have, please do deduct those from that £78,000 figure. But before I say why that has expenditure will probably harm the community, I want to say how value is created in a market and economy. So what an entrepreneur does is he takes his inputs, say he's a peanut vendor, he takes his sugar, his peanuts, his gas, and say they cost £2,000. And then he offers these caramelised peanuts to consumers, and they provide him with £2,500 worth of revenue. He's provided, or rather he has created, £500 worth of value for the community. That's how we can tell he has made the community better off. His profit represents that he's made the community better off. Now, I would maintain, and I want to focus on the theatre here, that is a loss-making organisation. What it does is it takes inputs, a great number of inputs, and it creates by value, and it produces a smaller number, a lower value of output. It actively destroys value within the community. And we are making that possible by giving it £70,000 worth of taxpayers' money. Now, it may be said, oh, people want this theatre to be supported. I very much doubt this. And the way we can test whether or not they want it to be supported, whether or not they really do value it, that is, they allow it to make a profit, they allow it to create a net value, is by not forcing them to pay for it. We say, well, here's the £70,000 back to all of the people, and if you want to go and give it to the theatre because you want it so much, you can. And of course, I think even Frank would, or Councillor Osborne would concede this. They wouldn't go and spend their £70,000 on the theatre. They'd go and spend it on restaurant meals, ice creams, a gritter for their car or something like that. They spend it whatever they like. And that shows that they value the £70,000 spent by them themselves more than it going to the theatre. So given that fact, that people clearly don't value this theatre, it's ridiculous to allow for this value destruction within our community. That is, taking a great number of high value inputs and producing a low valued output. So this budget should be rejected entirely. And before somebody says, oh, everybody in the community values or says they value the theatre, let me say this. A great number of people said they valued Woolworths and Blockbuster, but we allowed them to go to the wall. So why should we treat the theatre any different? If it can't make a profit, if it can't produce net value to the community, it should go bust. This budget does not allow it to go bust. It should go bust. If, of course, and I am making an assumption here, it couldn't survive in the market. If it can survive in the market, fine. I wish Councillor Osborne the best of luck. But I'm firmly going to believe it probably couldn't. And this grant, the £70,000 grant, is making taxpayers worse off, it's making the community worse off. And given everybody here doesn't want to make the community worse off, they should not support this budget. Now, if I have anybody that's rebutting me, could they explain why I'm wrong? Not just you are wrong, but why you're wrong. Without using the phrase, without explaining the phrase, you knew the value of everything, and you know the cost of everything and the value of nothing. I know that's been said to me many times before.
I see where you're coming from. I personally think you can't put a value on community and community spirit and what we do for the community. And there are people that don't want to pay for it, but there are also a vast number of people that do want to pay for it and that use Checkermead. We're not just going to the theatre and but for other things. I've got a number of hands that have come up, so I'm going to stop talking there. I think, if I may, I'd like to go to Councillor Osborne first.
No, you can't go to Osborne, Councillor Osborne or Councillor Hispan as they are.
You're right.
I'm sorry.
Councillor Matthews.
Councillor de Bell's first bit hand up, so let's go
Actually,
first.
I'm not actually on, are we on F and GP now?
Yeah.
So I'm not telling that F and GP, so.
If you wish to allow Councillor de Bell to speak, then by all means do,
I
but
would
you
be
should
pleased
go
to
to the
if I
committee,
can
you
do
should go to the committee member
Fine.
first.
Okay. Councillor Matthews.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to propose we move to the vote.
That's up to the chair, the fact that we haven't had, if you feel we've had sufficient discussion, then
I-
we can move on.
I think we need to do. I think it's worth discussing. So I thank you for that. I think we should have a little bit
I
of
think we
debate.
should ask if anyone prepared to second it.
That wasn't a motion. It was simply the proposal which has been made by the chairman of the committee has been made. Councillor Amos spoke against the motion. And that's really all that's happening at the moment, is that those of you who wish to speak on the motion may speak for or against, and obviously we'll then move to the vote on the motion which is before the table, which is not Councillor Amos's motion, sorry, Councillor Amos's statements. Those are his statements as to why he disagreed with the motion.
Yeah. Why I want to propose that. When you get to my great age, every minute is important. and I don't want a lot of old toss.
I take the comments on board. If you can hang around a few more minutes, that would be great.
No, I'm not talking about. Can I raise a point of order? Because is it in our standing orders that the question now be put? It always used to be.
It's what it says in standing orders is that if the chairman believes that that the matter has been discussed, it will move to the vote at that point. If sufficient discussion has not been had, he can continue the discussion, but it's noted that somebody's already made that request. If the chairman believes discussion has been had and this is simply elongating, then yes, at that point we would
I mean, that
absolutely
was just a
move.
question for a point of clarification. I mean, I wouldn't want to stop any discussion at all on it. And
I would on this
I'm
occasion.
just, it's a pity I can't join
And
in.
please don't add comment. Thank you, councillor.
Councillor Matthews, if we can hang around for a few more minutes.
Well,
Let's not.
you might have to tire me out.
We can
Return to the substantive rather than discussing councillor Amos's comments.
Councillor.
Which one?
Well,
Me?
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Mrs. Belsey is on the committee.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
And
let's do-
the councillor-
okay, well,
So he's not for the pecking order.
Town Mayor.
Okay, I'll keep it brief.
Yeah, go on.
Well, what
Trying
we
to
first of
help
all say, you're talking about for-profit organisations competing or operating in a competitive marketplace.
Yeah.
In terms of retail, we're talking about a theatre that provides cultural benefits to the town, and without it, how should we say, the cultural aspects of the town would be severely undermined. And we saw the value for that and the need for that during COVID. I think it's disappointing that point may be lost on you, or it's still, how should we say, put at a second place compared to the need to make a commercial profit. Secondly, and I'm very happy to be corrected by the town clerk, but I believe from other theatres, certainly publicly sector-owned theatres operating in the UK, Checkerley does very well. It receives a relatively small grant for its operations. Other comparable theatres receive much larger grants as a percentage of its income compared to Checkerley. Thirdly, the building is owned by the town council with a long-term lease provided by the town council to the Checkerley trustees and the Checkerley organisation. Without their efforts in terms of managing both physically the maintenance of the building and looking after it through stewardship, I would argue it would be, how should we say, not beneficial to the long-term economic interests of the town council, because it would fall into a stage of repair, at which point it would need, how should we say, significant costs to repair and make good. So they would be my arguments to rebut what you've said. I appreciate what you've said, but I disagree with that. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. I'd like to move to the vote soon, so it's Councillor Ms. Belsey.
Thank you. As a member of the Finance and General Purposes Committee, we have gone over every part of the budget in detail. We've discussed it with Councillor Amos. At every meeting, every factor of the budget has been looked at, scrutinised. We've gone back and forwards. We've looked at everything, and I believe the budget in front of us is the result of a lot of hard work, discussion through the officers and through the committee, and I think we should go to the vote.
Thank you.
I'll reply to that, please.
No. Right.
Private council development to speak.
Okay, Councillor.
Thank you very much, Chair, for allowing me to speak. In actual fact, our mayor covered every single point I was going to make. The fact is that this is a grant for something in the town, similar to the swing money, the cricket money and everything else that this town needs for cultural purposes, and which is being supported by the townspeople. So thank you very much, Town Mayor. I thought you did that very well.
I'd like to move to the vote now. So could we
Could
please?
they have a right to reply, because this is a main motion, not an amendment.
No, you only have 40 yes, so-
The motion was proposed by the chairman.
Yeah.
You spoke against it.
Yeah.
So you didn't make a motion.
Very good.
Okay, I'd like to move to the vote, please. All those in favour?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and against.
Yeah.
And against.
Oh,
and against, sorry,
And against.
and
And
against.
against. Yes. Thank you.
Apologies.
It is carried, but
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, right. The next is to formally recommend the overall town council budget for 2023 and 2024 financial year to the council. It is council that will then resolve the precept. So that there are a couple of points here. Number one, the revenue estimates for 23-24 are set out on the draft budget booklet previously circulated to members. Be approved by council on the 30th of Jan to become town council's budget 23-24 financial year. Number two, that the town council's capital programme for 23 and 24 be set down in the draft budget booklet. Three, that the town council's estimate payments of £1,459,903, an estimated income of £356,009 in the 23-24 financial year be approved, resulting in a net cost to the town council of £1,103,894. Item 4, the council on the 30th of January 23 will be requested to approve an actual precept for the 23-24 financial year, which the committee recommends should be set at £1,103,894. This is representing an annual council tax increase of 1% at £93.26 per Band D property, based on the known tax base of £11,836.90. I would like to take them all these together. Please, could I have a second?
I'm happy to second that, Chair.
Thank you very much, Vice Chair. Does anybody have anything they'd like to say about this?
Yeah, firstly, I'd like to say, when I was at school, we would have debates on various motions. Now, they didn't refer to anything, we weren't deciding anything, but those would sometimes go on to up to 45 minutes to an hour. Now, this budget is being debated by this council, and it's discussing £1 million worth of expenditure of taxpayers' money, and the chair said, oh, we've had enough of the discussion, and we've had a member of the council say, that's an old tosh, let's move to the vote. This is Councillor Matthews, I apologise. If we are to operate properly, we should discuss these issues at length. I'm quite happy with people to say my views are a load of old tosh, but discussions should be had, and it should be had for more than 30 minutes. School debates I've been a member of have lasted for more than that. And yet we're discussing, yes, I'm fully aware that the group has had very long discussions, and I've no doubt it's been heated given Councillor Sweatman's appeared. It was fun to see things. But given we are a council and not a conservative group here, I think it is right that the leader of the opposition, or indeed any members of the opposition, should be able to speak. Now, I understand I'm just referring to myself here, but in the future, I don't think anybody should want a chair that's willing to just go to the vote and close down discussions because people want to go to bed or they want to go and have their dinner. But let's move on to the substance of the issues.
Committee stage.
Let us
Could I just come back on that?
well, no, you can't come back on that. I'm not
You're
going
the
to allow
chairman, you're the
that.
chairman.
Point of
order, you're the chairman,
Well, he's interrupted. Nobody said, oh, stop him from
Point of
interrupting.
order.
No, I want to carry on because if the chairman speaks, then it is the case that I can't carry on going on speaking, and that will be the end of it. Miss Councillor Matthews, if you don't want to be here and listen to me, just leave. No, you're going to win the you're going to win the debate.
Excuse me,
I want to talk.
excuse me.
It should be addressing you, Chairman.
Address me.
Mr.
This
Chair,
isn't just an open debate. We will do this properly. So,
this council is ridiculous.
no,
I'm leaving.
Councillor Amos, Councillor Amos, I wasn't actually stopping you. I was asking for let's not all talk over each other and let you continue to talk. If
Well,
you'd
that
like
is
to
the
continue
case.
to talk,
I
please
do
take
like
a
talking.
seat.
I'll try
continue.
to talk.
You do.
I want to address some of the points that were made against my points earlier, such as the cultural benefits would be lost to the town if the theatre were to go bust as a result of its grant being taken away. I don't deny that. I think you're right in saying that we would lose the cultural benefits of the theatre, but it must be understood that insofar as the grant is given to the council, you are making other people poorer. People that don't like going to the theatre are made worse off. They're made worse off by the value, well, they're made worse off by about £2, I believe. And I, for one, think people should be able to keep their £2. And if they do value the theatre, they can go and spend their £2 at the theatre, but they shouldn't be forced to spend that £2 at the theatre via taxation. Now, your second argument was
Councillor Reynolds, sorry, we've approved that bit before. I'm now asking for comments on the revenue estimates and so on and so forth. Is that correct?
No, Councillor Reynolds is quite able to raise his bill.
Okay, fine, no problem.
What you're doing at this point is you are recommending the whole budget to council, so it's perfectly
Then please
correct.
continue, Councillor Reynolds.
thank you. You spoke about, my apologies, Mr. Chairman, Councillor Peacock spoke about the long-term lease that the town council has with Check and Need, and that if the grant were removed, Check and Need would go bust, and then we'd have an asset which would not be bringing any revenue or would not be properly maintained. That is a possibility if we did not then let out that property to other organisations that could make a profit. I would simply repeat what I have said. This budget, or rather parts of this budget, because I can't speak for the public good aspects, but the private goods that are provided, that is theatre and sports grants, they are they're probably value destructive, because they, in a free market, would make a loss. And if something makes a loss, that shows people do not value the outputs in excess of their input values. And that means there is value destruction. Now, I understand that the council likes to base their decisions on feelings and feedback. I, for one, would much rather trust a market mechanism to allocate resources than a collection of politicians around this table who, however well intended, could never gather all of the information necessary to ascertain people's preferences as to whether or not they really do value these public services such as the theatre. Because you're quite right in saying most people, if you ask them, would say, yes, I want the theatre to be in existence. But if they only value the theatre, say, at £1, so they would only accept £1 of subsidisation for the theatre, and it would cost £2 of subsidisation per person for the theatre to remain open, despite the fact everybody being in favour of the theatre being in existence, they wouldn't value it enough to support it. So even if most people want it, it's still not net value to the community to provide for it. I will conclude then by saying this council should vote against this budget, and I got rather uppity at times, and I think justifiably so, but I still would like to apologise for my disposition slipping at various points this evening.
Thank you, Councillor Reynolds. Okay, is there any other comments?
Well, I'd say very briefly, thank you, Chairman. Councillor Amos points out that he believes that the sports grants are dilutive and loss-making. What I would say is they're going to, we heard the lady, Mrs. Shelley, comment about how the grant has enabled swimmers from East Grinstead to compete at a national level, potentially for all I know, international level, winning potentially gold medals on an international stage. Who can put a monetary value on that? I would suggest it's far greater than £500. And then when you look at Premiership footballers in the football industry, funding £500 for training footballers at a young age and the referees, who can say that £500 is destructive when you could have professional footballers created in only 3 or 4 years or 5 years? So I would fundamentally disagree with the argument put forward that these grants are ultimately value destructive. Thank you, that's all I'll say. And I propose we move on.
Well, I'd like to move on, so I'd like to move on to the vote, please. All those in favour of accepting the budget as proposed? And against?
It's carried, Chair.
Okay, so the next full meeting of the committee will be held at 7 PM on Thursday, the 16th of March. I close this meeting at 7:54.